The NBA is a global empire worth billions of dollars. Its entertainment, its business, and its image. But behind the highlight reels and superstar endorsements, there's a darker truth. Some players have simply vanished from the league. Not because of injuries, not because of talent, but because the NBA quietly decided they were bad for business. Today, we're diving into the untold stories of players who the NBA may have blacklisted. Guys who could still hoop, but found themselves pushed out of the game for reasons that had nothing to do with basketball. Long before Colin Kaepernick took a knee in the NFL, there was Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf. In the mid-90s, Abdul-Rauf was one of the NBA's best shooters, a lightning-quick guard who could score on anyone. He wasn't a superstar, but he was a respected starter. Then came 1996. During the national anthem, Abdul-Rauf refused to stand. He said the American flag was a symbol of oppression and tyranny, and that his faith would not allow him to participate in what he felt was hypocrisy. The reaction was instant: media outrage, angry fans, and pressure from the league. The NBA suspended him, fined him, and eventually worked out a compromise where he would stand but keep his head down in silent prayer. But the damage was done. By 1998, at just 29 years old, Abdul-Rauf was out of the league. Still young, still talented, but completely iced out. He later admitted that no team wanted to touch him because of his beliefs. Sound familiar? It should. It was the NBA's own version of blackballing, years before Kaepernick made headlines in football. Craig Hodges was a three-point sniper, a role player who helped Michael Jordan's Bulls win back-to-back championships in 1991 and 1992. He even won the three-point contest 3 years in a row. But Hodges wasn't just a shooter. He was outspoken. He wore a dashiki to the White House after the Bulls' championship win and handed President George H.W. Bush a letter criticizing U.S. policies toward poor and minority communities. What happened next? Hodges expected to be re-signed by the Bulls, or at least picked up by another team. Instead, nothing. He was 32 years old, still in shape, still a specialist every team could use, yet no team called. Years later, Hodges openly accused the league of blackballing him for being politically outspoken. And honestly, looking at his sudden disappearance, it's hard not to believe him. In 2012, the Houston Rockets drafted Royce White, a 6'8" forward with point guard skills. He was talented enough to be a first-round pick, but he had one big issue: anxiety. White was terrified of flying, and he demanded the Rockets give him special treatment to manage his mental health. He wanted to travel differently, to have guaranteed support systems, to spark a conversation about how athletes deal with mental illness. Instead of working with him, the Rockets saw him as a headache. He barely played in the NBA, was constantly at odds with the front office, and within 2 years, he was gone. Today, White openly claims that the NBA didn't want to deal with the truth about mental health, that they'd rather push him out quietly than set a precedent for future players. And when you think about how outspoken he's been ever since, running for political office, criticizing the league, it feels less like a failed career and more like another case of the NBA protecting its image. Not every blacklisting story is about politics or activism. Some are about crossing the line too far. Latrell Sprewell was a 4-time All-Star. But in 1997, during a Warriors practice, he snapped, literally choking his coach, P.J. Carlesimo, around the neck. The NBA suspended him for the rest of the season, and although he eventually came back, his reputation was destroyed. Even when he played well with the Knicks and the Timberwolves, he was treated as a problem. By 2005, when most vets can still find a roster spot, Sprewell was completely out of the league. No team would touch him, not because he couldn't play, but because no franchise wanted the PR nightmare. In 2016, O.J. Mayo was only 28 years old, a solid guard who had carved out a decent career after being drafted 3rd overall in 2008. But suddenly, the NBA banned him. The official reason? A violation of the league's drug program. But unlike most suspensions, this wasn't for 10 or 20 games. Mayo was dismissed and disqualified from the NBA, a punishment so rare, it raised questions. To this day, Mayo has never returned to the NBA. He's played overseas, still chasing basketball, but as far as the league is concerned, he doesn't exist. There are other players who whisper about being iced out too. Stephon Marbury, who clashed with coaches and GMs before escaping to China. Delonte West, whose personal struggles kept him out even when he begged for a comeback. Even Carmelo Anthony, who spent an entire year blackballed before Portland finally gave him another shot. Not all of these are confirmed. Some were self-destruction, others were politics, and some were simply bad timing. But when you look closely, a pattern emerges. If the league decides you're bad for the NBA brand, your career can vanish overnight. The NBA sells us the idea of a meritocracy, that the best players will always find their place. But history shows that's not always true. Sometimes talent isn't enough. Sometimes speaking out, standing up, or even just stepping out of line can cost you everything. So, what do you think? Were these players truly blacklisted by the NBA? Or were they victims of their own choices? Let us know in the comments. And if you want more untold NBA stories, scandals, and deep dives, hit that subscribe button, because we've got a lot more coming.